bit.
All right, as we mentioned earlier, the European Union plans to impose billions in additional tariffs on U.S. exports in reaction to President Trump's steel and aluminum tariffs. The tariffs will amount to more than $3 billion in American goods like jeans, motorcycles, and bourbon. Are we on the cusp of a full-out trade war? Let's bring in Mattie Duppler, Senior Fellow for Fiscal Policy at National Taxpayers Union. Good morning, Mattie.
Good morning.
All right, I want to get to a soundbite from President Trump in Duluth yesterday. Let's play it right now.
But one thing nobody talks about is the money that's pouring into the Treasury. You know, these tariffs, you're talking about billions and billions of dollars, and money's pouring into the Treasury. We forgot about that. Nobody ever mentions it, and nobody mentions the jobs.
So what do you think, Mattie? Is he right? Is this money pouring into the Treasury?
Well, I think if we've got an uptick in revenue going into the Treasury, we have the booming economy to thank, not tariffs and onerous regulation policy that really affects our ability to increase commerce here. Now, make no mistake, the president's opponents are salivating at the opportunity to try and condemn the tax reform that he signed into law last year. The economy right now is objectively booming because of the reform to the tax system, as well as the deregulatory agenda that this administration has pursued. So when you look at the trade policy, the question is that offering an opportunity for that economic growth to slow? And I would argue that it is. You know, nature abhors a vacuum, as does the economy. So when you look at tariffs potentially going into place not only this month but the next, we start to worry that we're going to see some slowdown in this economic growth. The best way to increase revenues for the Treasury, if that is the goal, is to increase economic growth, make that pie bigger in order for revenues to grow.
All right, so let's get to the EU. So is there a chance for any sort of last-minute deal with the EU before tariffs on U.S. goods are expected to take effect tomorrow? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think we've seen with this administration, there's always a chance for a last-minute deal. The question is whether or not the president wants to pursue one. Now, the administration needs to be clear about what its intended consequences are when it comes to these tariffs. They've said for a long time it has a national security justification for it. But of course, when you look at our allies in the EU and Canada and Mexico, it's a question of whether or not those actually accomplish national security aims. I would argue that weakening our relationships with some of these allies certainly puts us in a more precarious situation from a national security perspective. And of course, what has better national security imperatives than a strong national economy? I think when we look at the things that really make the United States safer, having strong economic growth is certainly one of them.
All right. Thank you very much, Mattie. Appreciate your insight.
Fascinating stuff. All right, still ahead. If you're planning to hit the road this 4th of July, you're going to want to leave just a little bit early. A record number of Americans